eggplant meatballs. It's kind of an oxymoron, but eggplant meatballs, polpette de melanzana, are great. And it's a great change from doing standard meatballs. So I always like to show you the ingredients whenever we start a recipe. It lets you know right away if you want to attempt it or not. We have two large, not large, about medium American eggplants, which American eggplants get very large. Basil here. A lot of fresh basil. Garlic. And 2 eggs. Also Pecorino Romano. That's the bag that I just got it from. And breadcrumbs. So I have a whole pot of marinara sauce. Use my marinara recipe or bring your own into the mix here. About 3 cloves of garlic. And with the back of our knife, just a little hit, you can remove the skin of the garlic very easily. It'll pop right off. All right, then there's kosher salt. You want to get a paste of garlic, and really the best way to get paste is to use some salt and some pressure, which you'll see in a sec. But for now, just mince it pretty fine to start. Then put your kosher salt on top. You know, use some pressure with the back of your hand and the knife, and you'll make a paste. I always like to do it on this plastic cutting board, because after I get my paste, then I can put the cutting board into the dishwasher. See how nice that is? You just chop off right at the end of the eggplant. You don't want to waste any of it. And remove the little green part right here. And just slice it down the middle. You don't have to be exact with any of this cutting here. This is nothing's critical about this. I'm going to cube it into about 1-inch cubes, like I'm showing you here. So we have a lot of eggplant to start. Medium-low heat. Very low heat you want. Coat about a 1/4 cup of olive oil into the pan and get your paste in and mix it around. We don't want to burn this at all, so keep it low. Put the eggplant in and about a 1/2 cup of water, and you can turn the heat up to about medium. The water is going to steam the eggplant, so just cover it. It'll be about 5-10 minutes. And then remove the lid and it'll look like this. It'll have lost most of its volume, and you'll have a lot of water in the pan. You want the water in the pan so it doesn't burn. But now we have too much water in here. The eggplant released a lot of its water as well. So let's drain it out. We don't need to be pressing it or going nuts here to remove the water, but we definitely want to get most of the water out. We want the eggplant to be relatively cool so we can form our meatballs. Right now it's steaming and it'll be way too hard to work with. You know, you want to give it about 20 minutes before you move on to this next step of chopping your basil. Remove all the stems of the basil. And you could also use parsley here. You could use some fresh oregano. I just think basil goes absolutely just perfect with eggplant, so I want to use a lot of it in these eggplant meatballs. I have 2 eggs. And I'm going to use a separate bowl to crack my eggs, just so in case if I cracked one and it went in there and it was a bad egg, then I would have a problem trying to remove it. This is just a good practice to follow. Do it for both of them. Pepper. I'm going to put 1 teaspoon in here, so a sizable amount of pepper. And a sizable amount of pecorino, 3/4 cup. About a 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt. And the breadcrumbs. I'm not going to put them all in right now. I'm going to put in about 1/2 and just mix it around. And I want to test my consistency. I want to be able to form a meatball. I don't want it to be too soft. If it's too soft, they'll become basically like patties. So that was too soft, and I'm adding more of the breadcrumbs. And I'm mixing around, trying to mix gently to not over mix it. And yeah, I needed to use all the breadcrumb. So yeah, the measurement was exact here and it was right, but you know, that can always change. So you always want to try to, you know, get a feel for it yourself. And that mixture looks like it'll form a good meatball. And so I have parchment paper lined baking sheet and I have water. Use water or olive oil, put it on your hands before you form your meatball. And this is just the way to form a meatball. So you won't get anything on your hands. It'll be a relatively easy cleanup. You'll get a perfect ball just like that. And I'm doing them about a 1 1/4 inch, maybe a little bit less. It just doesn't matter either. That looks good to me. I'm gonna put them in the oven at 350 for about 20 minutes. And they come out nice and brown, and they're tender. They're very tender. So I'm gonna put them in a bunch of marinara sauce. Just get them floating in there. The sauce you could put it in the oven like I did in this oven safe, dish, or you can just get a regular dish and put the sauce on. You don't have to bake these. They don't have to be cooked. They don't need to be braised like a regular meatball does. If you like eggplant recipes, which obviously you do if you watch this whole thing, check out my chicken sorrentino. Also check out my pasta alla norma recipe. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time. It's hard to mess these up. The eggplant gets, from the steaming process, it gets very tender. I guess that's the right word. I don't know. So good and different.